Hey, how you doing? I'm glad to have you back for the second episode of the Boots Off podcast. I'm really excited to have this guest on the BOP. I've been promoting the episode on Twitter and Facebook over the past couple weeks, and I've kinda alluded to our guest being a crew member on USS Nimitz back in 2005 when a film crew boarded the ship to shoot the PBS docuseries Carrier. And I was fortunate enough to work with him later on when I was stationed in Japan and he was there as a government employee. His name is Christian Garzone, and over the next hour, we'll briefly touch on his Carrier experience, what it was like going from an undesignated career to landing the job he really wanted in the Navy, as well as how he dealt with a medical separation. So let's converse with the very entertaining Mr. Christian Garzone. I'll start off with a little funny story. So I used to be a loadmaster on C-130s before I went into broadcast journalism in the Air Force. And a couple years into my time working with you, or at least in the same building, I got a Facebook message from a navigator that I used to fly with. And he just asked me, hey, do you know a tall Navy dude named Garzone that does Navy AFN in Japan as well? I was like, yeah, I do know Christian. He used to be Navy, but he's GS now. Why do you ask? He said, no way. I was like, well, how do you know Christian? Just from a TV show. And I was very confused. I didn't know you that well, but I was like, wait a minute. You know Christian from a TV show. I know he's a funny guy. He's got a great personality. I don't think he's done any sitcoms or anything like that.
Yeah.
But then it turned out that he knew you from a PBS documentary, like a docuseries called Carrier.
Yeah.
And so then I had to go and watch this. And you said that it actually does have quite a following, Carrier.
Yeah, it really does. It's kind of a global following. It still airs in repeats, and you can stream it. We were just talking about that before the phone call, kind of streaming. You can look at it online, and it can just kind of, you don't have to buy the DVD. You can just watch it on the internet, the World Wide Web. But yeah, over the years, when it first hit, obviously, there was a huge following. I mean, Mel Gibson produced this show of force, huge company, put it together. In 2008, when it first hit the TV airwaves, it really had a big following. But I still get messages over it. I still get people, emailing me sometimes, sending me racy photos and, hey, please fly over here tonight. Like, what? Whoa. Like, seriously. But it still has an impact. And people use that, I think, a lot of the times when they're curious about the Navy or curious about the military, what life is really going to be like, because it is so realistic and it is so true to what Navy life is really like. Good and bad and in between. So, yeah.
I didn't know that it was produced by Mel Gibson. That's interesting.
Yeah, he was either the executive producer or the producer or something like that. I talked to him over email one time. Well, sort of through like three other people. He mentioned my name in an email once, and I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world. Because he ever see Apocalypto? That's a wonderful movie, by the way.
You did kind of stand out among the, I don't know if you call them characters in the show, because of your personality, and you just have this optimistic, kind of relaxed, happy-go-lucky personality. You didn't have like the most, polished kind of job on the ship, but it's kind of punny.
Right.
You were an undesignated airman.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about that. Being on the ship, what was that like?
I mean, you're kind of tossed into this sort of world of unknown because you're undesignated. You don't know where you're really going. I don't know if the Navy still has undesignated anymore. I keep hearing conflicting information that they got rid of that quote unquote rate, which it really wasn't a rate. It was just kind of this needs the Navy type of task. But it was really something. It was a big this learning curve, because you don't have a job. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what you're doing. I was tossed kind of in the V2 department, which is sort of catapults, arresting gear, flight deck kind of stuff. But I worked in damage control. I also worked in quality assurance, doing some paperwork stuff. So I was kind of lucky. But it was quite the experience. And you just get used to it. I mean, it's not something that's totally desirable, because you really want to go in with a job. You really want to do something you're passionate about, or or I think that's what everybody wants, like a police officer or whatever. They want to do something that's going to springboard them, maybe post Navy career with skills and everything. And going in undesignated, I was told by my recruiter, he said, he's like, yeah, you just do this undes job for 6 months, and then you get to pick whatever you want. You want to be a Navy journalist, a photographer, you can pick it right away. Not a problem. It'll happen. I thought, oh, great. And that's not what happened at all. But you know what? I just kind of sucked it up and dealt with it and did my time. And I'm trying to do the math, but I think I did like a year and a half or 2 years on the Nimitz. Did a deployment in there as an undesignated Navy airman, going through the motions and doing whatever they needed me to do. And when it comes down to military, that's kind of an overall theme. You do what you're told in the military, whether you like it or not. It just kind of is what it is. Because you came from the world that wasn't undesignated, but you came from a world that was sort of quasi flight line type stuff, and the dirty work before you became a broadcast journalist.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, we were air crew, so you kind of felt bad. I did have to get a little dirty sometimes, but for the most part, you're just doing the math on putting things where they belong so that
Right.
the plane doesn't crash. I mean, you're responsible for lives and equipment, which is the heaviest load that you have in that job. But for the most part, you're telling people where to put stuff and hey, this thing's broken. Can you fix that? And I'm like, well,
Right.
I'm telling people to do all this stuff, and I'm like, I'm in no position to tell people what to do. I'm just like at E3, E4, and
Right.
telling
Right.
telling E5s to go and fix something.
They're gonna say something else. Go and fix something. But yeah, but you and I come from similar backgrounds in that respect. You were a loadmaster or whatever. Was it a loadmaster you were?
Yeah,
Whatever.
Loadmaster, right?
Right, exactly. But back to your original question. You asked me what it was like on the ship or whatever.
On the ship, yeah. You said it's like a
Yeah.
small town. Other people
Oh yeah.
described it as a prison setting. Another said it's like a big high school with all the drama.
It's all the above. I remember I used to talk to people who did brig time off and on. I remember one guy, he did time in the brig. He got served bread and water, and he was telling me we were from the same area, so people thought somehow we were friends, like from the Syracuse, New York area. And I was not. I was not this guy's friend, but everyone thought, oh yeah, Garzone and what's his face, they're best buddies. Like no. But he went down to the brig and he got bread and water. But he told me one day, he said, yeah, I really screwed them over because I asked for double portions every meal. So I got double bread and double water. And I'm laughing all the way. I'm thinking, oh my God. Yeah, that's you really screwed them over, pal, big time. But yeah, the brig, it's a jail, it's a high school, it's all that, but it's a wonderful experience at the same time. I mean, it's a floating city that stops all over the world, and you get, you know, if you behave yourself, you get like 2-3 days in port to see all these wonderful cultures and people all across the planet. It's an amazing experience, and it's a lot of hard work. And I don't look back at any of it with like thinking, oh, fiddlesticks, I wish that was better. It just was what it was, because there's so much that you get. You put so much into it, but there's so much you get out of it too. It's just an amazing experience.
Well, this was 2005. So how old
Mm-hmm.
were you when you?
Oh, I was 22, 23 at that time.
And so was that your first assignment then?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's boot camp, and then I went to Pensacola, Florida for A school, for like undesignated airman A school for the Navy, which was about a month, and then we went. A group of us went right to the Nimitz, out to the fleet. Other people went to squadrons and stuff like that, but that was my first assignment. And it is overwhelming and kind of scary at first. That's with anybody, I think. It's not like boot camp where you've got all these guys who are going to be doing the same exact thing you are, and you don't really have to worry about too much because you're going to be told what to do, whatever. This is like you kind of going out on your own and being thrown into this giant world of, an aircraft carrier, and you kind of better find your own way. You get guideposts here and there, but it's that to me was scarier than going to boot camp, honest to God, because being undesignated, again, I didn't know where I was going to be thrown, what I was going to be doing. It's just a total world of uncertainty. And climbing out of that undez rating to become a Navy journalist. At the time, it was JO. Later became MC, Mass Communication Specialist. But that was quite the epic trip, and I have a lot of people to thank for that, who helped me out along the way.
In the doc, you said you were the least likely of your friends to join the military. Well, what did you mean by that exactly?
Listen, when I was older, excuse me, I'm older now, but when I was younger, I was really, really fat, and I was really out of shape. Like, if I showed you pictures, I might be embarrassed to show them because I was just so overweight and so out of shape. And I didn't have a diet that was out of control. I wasn't eating Snickers bars and Coca Colas all the time. I mean, I had a diet like any other kid, but I just had all this baby fat, and I didn't really get much physical activity. So for someone to think that I joined the military, you know what I'm saying? Because the military, there's isn't the Marines, obviously maybe there's push-ups or pull-ups involved, but the military across the board, you have to be in shape. You have to be running around doing push-ups and sit-ups and everything else. You can't mess around with that. Although I did see some people who were kind of on the bigger side of things. You kind of raise an eyebrow and wonder, like, I wonder how they're still staying in. But you have to be physically fit and in shape. And I was last picked on every team in gym class, probably even for like kickball stuff like that. Nobody wanted anything to do with me. So it's like it was a real surprise for people when they thought, "Geez, Garzone joined the military." Just was kind of yeah, least likely. And it has nothing to do with any kind of feelings about the country or whatever. I've always been, a patriot, stuff like that. So there's nothing on that side of life. It really just had to do with like the my belly and everything else that I had in high school.
So then, what led you to that? And I'm assuming there's a gap between high school and enlistment.
Sure,
Right?
yeah.
If you say your first assignment was about 22.
Yeah, sure. I got my associate's degree from Finger Lakes Community College. I work full time. When 9/11 happened, that was something that really touched a lot of people, and people reacted to it in different ways. But for me, it was something that really, really hit me deep down. And I thought, well, I'm young enough. I got to put up or shut up. I can't be. I just think that was a time where I said, I have to do something for this country. I can't just sit on my hands and talk about the war in Afghanistan and yeah, let's go get let's go get Al Qaeda, stuff like that. Let's get the Taliban. Let's get them. Go go go, and just be sitting here, a young American male who's 22 years old. I would look back on myself 20 years later and probably think, man, why didn't I do something? Why didn't I just get up and join one of the services? And I really wasn't going anywhere. Honest to God with you, I mean, got my associate's degree. It was in just liberal arts, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I wanted to get out and travel and meet new people and have different experiences. And it has nothing. I don't want to say anything bad about small towns or whatever, but I really wanted to get out and just have new experiences. And that's what it came down to.
Yeah, and I think that not necessarily the patriotism being part of everybody's motivation, because also in that documentary they asked about, and this shocked me to hear it. Well, like they must have asked people what their views were on the mission and the war and their politics personally, and some people had no idea what they were doing floating around in the middle of the ocean,
Right.
and they were just there to do the work and have a job that was secure as long as they stayed out of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely is something that the Navy, the military as a whole, that brings in people with all different kinds of motivations. Some of it is just to get out of that small town.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah,
I had people that I worked with, and people who worked under me, who came out of a small town and they never had a chore in their life, didn't know anything about the Air Force or heck, journalism for that matter, as we were in the broadcast journalism field, and they were just looking for something to do to get out of home.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
I saw on the ship you were carrying around a camera, interviewing people
Yeah.
in a bunch of different environments, and just it seemed like that was just a passion of yours.
Oh yeah.
So is that what you set out to do from the beginning?
Yeah, like I would do all kinds of little short videos on the ship. Obviously where I couldn't, go to the reactor and start filming. That's against the rules. But I made a DVD about the USS Nimitz, like a little home video. It was poorly done. I mean, looking at it now, it's a piece of garbage. But I would pass out copies to people on the ship. It would feature people and their jobs and what the ship's about, and just that kind of stuff. But the show of Force Crew saw that and thought I was kind of a goofy guy, and they approached me. One day I was sitting in the office, and they approached me, and they said, "We'd like you to be a part of this documentary called Carrier." So I was going out, obtaining footage for them with my very good friend Phil Mager, who's in the documentary. We're like the C3PO and R2D2 of the whole whole saga, I guess. Best way to to describe us, so you can look at like Star Wars, whatever. Kind of a couple goofballs, but we would be filming things with their camera equipment, the show of force camera equipment, and I'd also be doing work for the journalists on the ship, the public affairs office and stuff like that. So I was kind of double duty there, in addition to doing my regular job, which was at a minimum about 12 hours a day, more than that really underway. So it was a lot of balls to the wall work, but I enjoyed every second of it. I mean, it was great. You're obtaining this footage and getting a few laughs, and then it was just a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
So how do you get from undesignated to JO or MC? Because for me, we had at the end of your first term of enlistment, you had the option to go out and see what else was available to you career wise. So I knew from the beginning I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. So at the end of my first term, I was like, I'm putting in the paperwork. I'm going to do this. And then I was suddenly a broadcast journalist after school. So how does that work for you in the Navy?
Well, at least in 2005, the way it worked was really the first word comes to mind is determination, because it seems like there's every obstacle in your way and every ounce of negativity is poured upon you when you sort of broadcast in a way that you want to work your way out of wherever you've been thrown. So I was in the V2 department, and anybody in the Navy can tell you about the V2, the ABEs and the resting gear guys and gals. They are probably the hardest working people on an aircraft carrier, and everybody is needed. So when I first said I want to be a journalist, every joke in the book was thrown at me. People told me, "You're never going to get out of here." My voice cracked there. See, I'm like Peter Brady. Excuse me. No. But I was told, like, everybody told me, you're not going to get out of here. You might as well just accept your fate and become an ABE or an AZ, which is aviation records keeper. And I didn't really accept that as an answer. I thought there's got to be a way. And I just stuck with it for, like, again, that whole time, year and a half or whatever. I'm just failing on the math now. But it took me that long to sort of get out of that, to get orders to DINFOS, a Defense Information School, where military broadcast journalists and print journalists go to train. So it was a very long journey, a lot of negativity. But I understand a lot of that was people just who probably tried to climb out of that, but after a while they just got stuck through no fault of their own. They just got stuck in the cycle of doing whatever job they were doing in that community of Navy aviation. So, did I answer the question? I think I went down like a dark rabbit hole here.
It was difficult, but how did you make it happen?
Right. So I did on the job training, OJT, with the journalist people, and I made an effort to do that every chance I got, and I was just blessed to know the right people, Chris Allen, Dustin Diaz, others who helped me out there, who I guess recognized my passion and knew I wanted to do this. But there's a lot of back and forth with paperwork and meetings, and there was a board I had to go through to determine if I'm fit to have these orders cut for school. I remember the first one, the command master chief of the ship, real tough fella. I had tried to cut my own hair, because I didn't have time to get my own haircut, and I tried to cut pieces off on the side with scissors, and it was the sloppiest looking thing, and nothing gets by him. And I was waiting in line to go for my first board, and he get this clown out of here. His haircut's not even real. Look at that. And it was sloppy. I thought I probably should have turned a light on or something when I was trying to cut my hair. But so I failed my first board. Anyway, but you go through on the job training, you have and maybe board's the wrong term, but you have like a sort of interview process you go through, and then eventually you get orders cut. And it took a long time, but I was determined to become a military journalist and to work my way out. And I knew the right people, and I stuck with it. I didn't give up. And a lot of people kind of all along the way, give up. You're never going to do this. It's impossible. You'll never make it. And I'm not going to say that fueled me more, because it was discouraging, but I stuck with it.
And then you ended up in Tokyo, right?
Yeah, I went to the Defense Information School, Fort Meade, Maryland, and I got orders to Tokyo, Yokota Air Base, working for the Air Force, which, by the way, was a wonderful treat. The best food in the world. I had my own dorm room. I couldn't believe it. And it was a dream assignment. Eventually, I started to do the radio show out there, Eagle 810. I had wonderful mentors out there, Mike Brogan, Norris Agnew, Willie Big Daddy Price. these people, Kyle Hammett, Bill Reed, people I'm forgetting to mention, but it was just a wonderful assignment. It was the best job in the world, and it was just an incredible experience. And it is being a military broadcast journalist, or even a print journalist. Heck, that's the best gig going.
Probably a big difference from the ship
Oh
to
yeah,
going to Tokyo.
oh big time, big time. It was a big time difference, but still, I don't want to give the impression that it wasn't like a decreased amount of work. It's still a lot of work, but it's work you love doing. I mean, you get excited about putting together radio spots, going out and doing a production, and learning from the best of the best. I mean, it's really just a wonderful experience to have that kind of opportunity, and you don't really treat it like work. It's just you go in every day, and you're just thrilled to be there.
And now, those first few years, going from upstate New York, you went to college for a couple years, and then onto a ship, and then redirect your path going to Tokyo, and now you're on the radio. How did all of that shape you? Did it change you at all?
In terms of like my professional experience, or just
As a person, that's a lot to go through in your early
yeah,
20s.
I'm sure it did. I haven't even thought about it really, but I'm sure it did. I mean, certainly there's a certain level of maturity you have to have, and just kind of channel, I guess, at times to grow up, maybe past what you are at that time in terms of experience and age, and just kind of get to where you need to be to interview, some of the biggest people in Japan on the radio live, and balance that morning zoo. It's a lot of pressure and stress, but good pressure and stress. So undoubtedly it shaped me. And again, some of the people I had to work with, they were just incredible mentors, and I still to this day keep in touch with them over Facebook and stuff like that. And I still thank them to this day because they were instrumental in shaping me into the man I am today.
Do you have any particular challenges or anything like that, memorable moments that you can relay here?
Are you referring to the epilepsy?
I was not specifically, no.
Oh, okay. Because we can jump to that if you want.
Sure, whatever.
Well, I mean, that was obviously a challenging thing because I am epileptic. I didn't know that, but after my time was just about up in Tokyo in 2008, I started to have seizures, and I didn't know what what was going on. I mean, it was just an experience that I thought I was just like having these heavy, active dreams and beating myself up and chewing my tongue, and I didn't know what was going on. But one of my friends and very good mentor, Scott Olguin, said, "I think you have, or you had a seizure." And I said, "Oh, come on, get out of here." And I went to the doctor. They did all these neural scans, and they're like, "Your brain is highly epileptic." Now, you can't go into boot camp if you don't know you're epileptic. They can't give everybody a brain scan in boot camp. It will cost too much money. I mean, these things are like, you look like Brainiac. You've got stuff all over your head, and it's a lot of money. So, yeah, I was diagnosed epileptic, and I was medically retired from the military. And that was because I planned on staying in. I was going into E5. I was, excited for what was to come, but it's just kind of like, hey, you got to go. Because if you think about it, you can't you can't go out to the fleet on a ship and have seizures around all that equipment and planes landing and taking off or whatever. It just doesn't work. It just is what it is. So yeah, I had to make that transition. I went back to school, got my bachelor's degree, and I used the post 9/11 GI Bill, which, by the way, Mike, tremendous benefit for veterans. Wonderful experience. So I think with that post 9/11 GI Bill, my transition to civilian life was eased a little bit because I didn't have to worry so much about, I'm just like, maybe watch a movie like Rambo or something. John Rambo's just wandering the streets like, we don't like drifters in this town, man. And he doesn't know where he's going or what he's doing. It wasn't like that. I felt like I had a purpose. Like I can go to school and kind of settle into things. I can find a part-time job and just kind of ease my way back into society. I know that sounds like a Rambo thing to say, but it wasn't like Rambo, you know.
I don't think that you can overstate the importance of that GI Bill and using that education bill to focus on getting that degree.
Yeah.
But so many people don't do it. They don't get their education while they're in, and then they get out and they've got all this money for college, and they just don't use it.
I know people in in boot camp who, for whatever reason, they didn't sign up for the GI Bill. And I remember one of my buddies, he's like, "That's my effing beer money, man." I thought, well, yeah, it's $100 a month for a certain period. I understand you might not have your Keystone Ice or your Coors Light or whatever for a little while, but he's like, "Oh, that's my beer money." He's like, "F that," and I thought, "Oh man," but that is a surprising number of people, mostly dudes. Surprise, surprise, but it it's isn't it a real head scratcher?
I'm baffled by it every time I think about it. Or I talk to people, and then I'll never forget. I was standing in line at the education office when I was in Abilene, Texas, and there was a guy who was retiring, I believe, and they told him at the education counter. They said, "You have like two more classes. You're like 3 or 6 hours away from obtaining just it's a simple associate's degree, right? But it's something."
Right.
And he's like, "Yeah, I know. I don't want that.
Okay.
You're just gonna write it off just like that. Um, Whatever. It's your life. You
Yeah.
can do what you want, but you can go and you can take these two CLEPs, Dante's test, whatever, and you'll have that done.
Right. Exactly.
Get your 2-year degree. You might want that in the future,
You know,
and it's going to be more difficult."
the military, they set you up for success, I believe, anyways, in my experience and what I've observed. They set you up for success so many steps along the way. I mean, look at something like TAPS class or whatever before you get out, stuff like that. I think that's what it was, right? TAPS? No, wait, what was the class?
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
it was a transition assistance program.
there you go. There you go. But so many people turn their back on this stuff and then they complain about it down the road. Like, well, I got screwed over. And like, well, did you take advantage of the GI Bill? Did you go to the VA? Oh, no, man. I didn't do any of that. It's like, well, what are you complaining about? Now, granted, I'm sure there are cases out there that I've not come in contact with, that people really do get screwed over with certain things, certain whatever. But I've known a number who just don't do the CLEP tests or whatever, and they don't pay attention in TAPS. They don't go to the VA. They don't do this or that or the other, and they get out and they, complain their way through life about it. But the military, I believe, sets you up for success in so many different aspects for post-military life.
For post, I think there are places where they fall short, and I believe the most valuable asset for someone who's getting out is other people who have done it, who have gotten out and found success in these little areas. And like Kellen Carr, who he was my first guest on this podcast.
Right.
He opened my eyes to something. He told me just go on to the VA's website and open up a case, apply for that disability.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm still waiting on my records. He's like, don't wait at all.
Yep.
Open up your case like right now.
Yep.
And then I found out, once I did that, they will compensate you from that time you open up your claim, as long as you accomplish it within a year. So if I had done this, if I had opened up a claim back in June when I separated, I would be compensated all the way back to June. Now it's going to be October, November, something like that. But there are these little important things that we step over, that we might not get that information about. So I think talking to other people, it really opens up a lot of other doors, not just for benefits and things like that, but networking as well.
Yeah.
Networking has been one of the most valuable things I've come across.
Well, sometimes too, talking to people can be a bit of a pain in the neck. Example, yesterday, as I kind of told you, I'm going back to school. I came in the military I almost had my bachelor's done. So I'm going back for another master's program starting in January. I'm using the GI Bill. It's great. Well, talking to other people, I'm at the gym and somebody heard, in a small town, everyone knows what I'm doing. Apparently, it gets around. But he comes up to me, he's like, well, that Donald Trump's doing away with the GI Bill, right? You're screwed. And I thought, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Donald Trump's doing away with the GI Bill? Oh, yeah, big time. And I kind of panicked a little bit, and I started going home and Googling stuff and looking up, and I'm like, wait, what's this guy talking about? And, so sometimes talking to other people, it's like, it's a stressful thing. But I would agree with you for the most part. Talking to other veterans, whatever, they're going to be able to guide you in the right direction. Maybe where they stumbled and fell, they can help guide you to a clearer path or whatever as well. It's a wonderful thing, wonderful community we have.
Totally. And yes, you do have to verify. You got to fact check thing, because you'll
Yeah,
start
yeah.
doing your research, to benefit yourself, and you'll find that that guy had no idea what he was talking
I
about.
know. I'm like,
So
when was this announced? I'm sure I would have heard about it, But
I'm looking at the timeline here. So you went from Tokyo back to school stateside.
yep, Syracuse University.
How long were you at Syracuse then?
I did an accelerated master's program, so it was 13 months.
13 months of masters, all on the GI Bill.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
And then you ended up back in Tokyo.
Yeah, I would actually, thanks to Kyle Hammett and Bill Reed and Michael Brogan and people who believed in me. I still wonder why they do, but I got rehired as a GS11. Was it a GS11? Yeah. Senior producer for military news team that covers the Pacific region. It was an incredible blessing. And I was hired over there for 3 years. Went all over the place: Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Thailand, Japan on these assignments, and I was able to a degree, help shape and mold a military news team to the best of my ability. Because comparatively, I mean, I just turned 30 when I went over there, and I was with guys who were, I think their experience really trumped mine. It was, they're in their, I don't want to give their ages away, but they're in their 50s roughly. But they had incredible faith in me, and I was able to just kind of take the reins and have this crew of people. And you were kind of one of them. You would kind of, yeah, because you were AFN Tokyo, right?
Initially, yeah, I was at Tokyo, and then I went to Afghanistan, came back, and then suddenly I was not even off of my R&R time from that deployment. And I forget, might have been you that asked me if I want to anchor the Pacific report.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. It sounds awesome. Okay, well, you have to go to, oh gosh, Cambodia next week.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, that's interesting. Let me check my schedule.
Yeah.
And then I was in Cambodia, sleeping in a windowless building. They didn't have doors. They didn't have windows.
Yeah.
I was on a rickety bunk bed with a mosquito net around me.
Yeah.
The toilet was a hole in the ground.
Oh yeah.
No showers.
Wonderful.
I was just deployed for 8 months, and that was far better than these conditions.
Yeah, it's funny. I got a number of those assignments too, where it's holes in the wall, or holes in the floor. Be tough to go on a hole in the wall, but it was just chickens and dogs and everything coming in your sleeping. Did you ever have that, like stray animals coming in your sleeping accommodations at nighttime?
No, I don't believe I had that.
I had that, dogs and chickens. I remember that. And anyway, sorry to go down that path and talk about that, but yeah, you sort of cross-pollinated or whatever. You were like Regional Media Center Japan, where I was, then you were AFN Tokyo, or reverse order, actually. Where were we going with this one? I forgot.
We were talking about how you got back into that GS system.
Oh, yeah, right. So
did you have to go through the entire USA Jobs?
Yep. That's the way you do it. But I think that a couple of the people kind of had their eye on me, that they maybe really wanted me to be in that position. I'm assuming, I don't know, but I had to go through the whole process, whole FBI background check and stuff like that. But I go back to that theme of determination. I mean, it's just, it can be a lot, because you're going to be working for the government, so they got to know who you are. You can't just show up and just say, paperwork's all good, man, take me. No, you got to go through like kind of a rigorous background check. But it is what it is, and you just get through it, and they take care of the paperwork on their end, analyze your background, see who you are. And maybe it's not so much at like the GS 2 level or something. I'm not really sure, but at least through the level I was at, you had to go through kind of a rigorous background check and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's also where some of that networking comes in handy, obviously.
Absolutely.
But you got to let people know what you want to do, and then they'll help guide you to where you need to be. People really can be helpful, if you just tell them what you want to do in life. I think they can help you get there.
Totally.
But I did try that USA Jobs. I applied for probably 20 different positions before I moved out here to Phoenix, and shot down.
Yeah,
I'm sure some of them, they're probably still sifting through the applications, because it does take forever.
Yeah. And I know there's like a veterans preference thing going. At least there was, anyways. So it might be tough for non-veterans to apply. But I think they maybe they kind of stopped doing that. But I know USA Jobs was quite the process, and it did take a while. Like I was washing dishes after I got done with Syracuse. I kept my job washing dishes at a kitchen, and I remember that went on for a good duration of time as this USA Jobs process was going through the motions. But I just stuck with it. I mean, I knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. I was, I could feel it. It was one of those, like the Force Awakens or something. You just know, you feel it inside.
So yeah, you'd already gone from the Navy life on the ship to practically Air Force life in Japan.
Yeah.
Back to college.
Yep.
As a civilian. So what changed noticeably from having the military to depend on to suddenly not having that?
I don't want to say that it was like this rugged, difficult transition, because it wasn't. Because the VA helped me out quite a bit. Because I was like that service connected or medically retired thing, so I got help every step of the way. Because the military determined that the epilepsy was somehow their fault. That's just what they figured out. So I was helped out every step of the way in terms of that. So I still have that sort of aspect of being a part of the larger community going forward when I got out. I would say that the transition was harder on others when I would get jobs. Like, I remember my internship, I would be the first one to show up in the morning, early as can be. Everyone else is coming in like 9, 10 o'clock, New York City, and I'm there at like 6 a.m. beating down the door, like I'm ready to start working, and I'm doing the parade rest. And well, I wasn't that bad, but it was just people were like, what is this guy's issue? Like, he's the first one here, last one to leave. He does everything he's asked, and for some reason, I was foreign to people. I guess, and I still have that when I go out and do certain jobs, and I see a lot of those values instilled in veterans around me. To this day, they've been out for years or whatever, and everybody, it's like this. I don't know, these skills you acquire going out into the world. Sometimes it can be harder, I think, on people in the sort of normal world who are trying to adjust to you. So, does that make any sense? It might not at all.
It does. There's not too much that I've noticed personally. I just separated in the end of June and came out
right
to Phoenix to start a civilian job as a news photographer. But I'm still in the reserve. Now, there has been some getting used to on their part, on the employer's part,
Yeah.
But I also happen to work for a former Navy journalist.
There you go.
Who kind of, he understands.
He gets it.
And he also explained to me, like, when he started, a dozen years ago, it was a challenge,
Yeah.
Because and the biggest part was, I've seen it a little bit, but he explained it to me before I started. He's like, the biggest thing you're going to notice is the camaraderie.
Yeah.
You're not going to have what you had in that military community.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Nobody cares about you. That's pretty much what he's trying to say. Like, at the end of the day, you hit the clock and you're out. You won't see anybody until the next day at work. Whereas in the military community, everyone's pretty much close.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
And they go out after work and see each other at the club and whatnot. I didn't do that so much because I had a family to get home to. And that's a different life.
Oh, you weren't at the E Club ignoring your family every night?
I did live right next to the E Club. And that place was always bouncing late at night. I don't know why.
Yeah. No, I never got the thrill of the E Club. I was always downtown doing something interesting. At least I thought it was interesting.
Which is what it should be like.
Right,
exactly. You should be able to go downtown when you're living in Tokyo and experience that culture. And then that was another thing. You lived off base.
Yep.
When you were there as a civilian.
Oh, yeah.
So that's completely different.
Yeah, well, it absolutely was. I had Mike Frank as a neighbor, too. Remember Mike Frank? But
I do.
Yeah. But it was, that was an incredible experience. And what an absolute blessing. Again, I go back to that. What a blessing that was to do that. Because, I mean, I think it's E5 or E6 or something. You get that sort of rent, or you can live off base when you're overseas.
Right, yeah, you get that BAH, you can live off base.
Yeah. So that was a real, just eye-opening experience for me to be able to do that. I'm trying to think. You asked earlier about the difficulties, the transition between getting out and finding your sort of niche or groove in this world. That's what,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. I just wanted to revisit that for a second. I mean, there were a couple things I had to learn, and I think this is kind of standard across the board, but it's true in terms of taking like a resume writing workshop to change everything into like civilian speak and to learn sort of the skills, because there are certain things. Even when I had my last job in the Washington D.C. area, there were things that I would do or say that people would look at me and say, "Well, you don't do or say that." And I had some people who might have been, maybe they were just a little bit little tight. I don't know how to put it, but I remember one time I made a joke. I was adjusting the teleprompter for one of the news anchors, and my hands aren't big, but I claim that I have these like gorilla fingers because I always goof up on the iPad and stuff like that. And the anchor said something about my hands. I said, "There's no problem with these hands, believe me." I was doing the Donald Trump thing. I didn't go any further than that, because Trump talked about other things, but that's all I said. And I got pulled aside afterwards that you made that news anchor very, very uncomfortable with what you said. I'm like, well, I said what? And they explained about the whole hands thing. I said, come on, are you kidding me? I didn't go into any. I just said there's no problem with these hands, believe me. But it was things like that that I would pick up on. I think to myself, like, man, this world can be really, really different out here. It's just a little weird to me coming out from military service and then government service and being around the military. And then I worked for the VA too in Milwaukee, so I was always around veterans and stuff like that. So there are little things you're going to learn along the way, but you just adjust fire and you get over them. Just tiny little things like that. That was a stupid story, but it made you laugh.
No, not a stupid story, and it's relevant right now, extremely. I've noticed a little bit of the same thing, but sort of kind of the opposite. Whereas I think they were starting to crack down a lot more on just random gestures in the military
Yeah.
when I was getting out, and there's a real crackdown on, you can just blanket it like inappropriate behavior. And even in Japan, like they were coming around making people take down certain photos.
Yeah.
There's Wade T. Oberlin. He had just a punk rock picture on his desk. I don't remember who it was that was on stage singing, had a microphone, punk rocker, shirtless. And somebody came around and said, "You cannot have that shirtless guy on your desk."
Okay.
So what
God.
he did was he made a little T-shirt out of paper, and he put the T-shirt on top of the photo and then scanned it so that he could still have it on his desk. But some head scratchers,
I
like
know.
maybe we're taking it a little bit too far. I understand what we're trying to do, trying to make it a safe place for everybody, very comfortable.
But by the end of the day, I don't know how long that pendulum's gonna swing so far they come crashing back. I mean, there were things, and I won't mention names, or even if this was like my government service time or military time, but I remember people were watching the Olympics in the office, and a couple of guys were looking at one of the female swimmers, and one guy just said, "Oh yeah, she's hot." That's all he said. But somebody wrote that down and complained about it. I'm glad that was shut down because that was stupid. So this one person said, "I couldn't believe that they were looking at the TV and they said that she's hot. I find that so disturbing." And I'm listening to this like, okay. And I'm glad that it was kind of put to rest and said, okay, we're not going to do anything with this. So just go away. Because it gets to be so ridiculous sometimes. It's not like it was an explicit thing. But that goes back to my hand story. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, what are you talking about? Who am I offending now? Who am I offending today? Good morning, world. So
these are conversations that make me a little happier to be such an introvert. And I'm so quiet in the workplace. I usually don't have to deal with any of that. Sit back and observe.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you start opening your mouth, somebody's going to all of a sudden turn around. I can't believe Lahrman said this or that. Oh my God, he's a monster. And anyway, I go on forever about this stuff, but I won't,
Okay, so looking back at all that, was there anything that you would have changed?
No, absolutely nothing. And I get asked that often enough about the going in undesignated thing. No, because that experience, it molds you and shapes you into the person you are going forward. And I'm so glad I had that perspective going into the journalism field, which I believe is one of those, I don't want to say cushy, but one of those more rewarding positions to have, that sort of everybody wants to be a radio DJ or a journalist or a video camera. They think, wow, I would love to do that. What a privilege to have that job. I was glad I had that perspective from the other side of the field there, doing all that other stuff, because yeah, as a Navy journalist or a military journalist, you get to report on that stuff, but you don't get to live it 24/7 for a long period of time and see how the rest of the military really functions and really gets by with a lot of stuff. Because our jobs were, I would say, again, not going to use the word cushy, but it was the best job to have. I mean, come on.
I think if you're a radio DJ, you might be able to use the word cushy.
Yeah, maybe I can get away with that. But it was a lot of work, but a lot of fun at the same time. Where a lot of military jobs, you're there to work, and it's not as rewarding at the end of the day. You don't think like, boy, I got to interview John Kerry or whatever. It's kind of like, well, I did this, that, or the other, and time for a beer.
I think if your biggest concern during the radio show is that you might get a phone call from Cecil, I think.
Oh man, yeah,
I think it's okay.
Yeah. Oh God, Kellen still has those videos up, by the way.
Yeah, YouTube. I should link some of that stuff because those
Yeah.
were hilarious.
I'm glad we fooled a lot of people. Actually, I'm not going to give away the ending. I'm not going to say who Cecil really was or is. I don't know if he's still alive anymore.
Well, the thing that I thought was nuts was when he actually showed up.
Oh my God! Time stood still. Wasn't it something? You see the photos?
I saw those photos. Unbelievable.
Just kind of undercover photos, kind of snapped in secret because he didn't want photos taken. But unbelievable, stunning proof that Cecil is a real person and a real pillar to the community out there, wherever he is. Last I heard, he was in Nigeria somewhere.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. But I should leave this in and then do some linking to some Cecil.
Sure.
Because people gotta know. People gotta know that what they're missing out on.
Yep.
But so no regrets. Wouldn't change anything. You had a very short but full career in the Navy, and then you've taken those talents to the GS world, etc. And what kind of advice would you tell anybody who is considering enlisting, or if they're faced with an impending separation?
Well, if they're gonna enlist, first of all, I say do it because I think it's a great experience for any young man or woman to do. I think it builds tremendous character, and you're going to have life experiences that you're just not going to get anywhere else. And again, you go through some really rough patches. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. The military is not just some thing you sign up for, and it's just hey, here's a big GI Bill. No, it's a lot of work. So I say, if you want to think about enlisting, make sure you're physically qualified, then do it. Absolutely. Even if you get into a job field that might be, I don't want to say undesignated, but something that's less desirable or whatever, you can get your way out of that. You're proof of that. I'm proof of that. Mike Brogan is proof of that. You can still do a passion because really the military, there are equivalents. Every rate job in the military really is in the outside world for the most part, I think. There's mailmen and everything else. There's librarians, I think, too. Maybe not librarians, but at least bookkeepers, stuff like. I'm giving.
Well, we had librarians on the GS side.
Well, there you go. Yeah, but there's some kind of equivalent. So if you have a dream of being whatever, you can probably sign up with the military, get that job, and have some awesome resume bullets going forward in life. And maybe you want to stay in for 20 years. And do your thing, because the military is just a wonderful experience. There'll be days, obviously, you're going to be there folding your arms thinking, this sucks. I'm so mad. But you're going to get through it.
That's going to be any job that you have.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
You're gonna have those days.
Absolutely, that you're going to have those days. In the military, I think, again, a lot of hard work, but it's so rewarding. The life experiences you're going to have, the friends you're going to make, the community you're going to have afterwards when you get out, you can't replace that. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So do it, go forward, deal with it. But when you look back on it, you're going to look back with a smile. I pretty much guarantee that.
But then separating. So you felt like you would have done a full 20 when you were in?
Yeah, I mean, at that time, I wanted to stay. I was having such a great time in Japan. I really wanted to stay in, even though I knew that the higher I moved up in rank, if I got to the E5, E6, or whatever, it's not likely that I would have still been a radio DJ or a video. I would have been dealing more with administrative stuff and dealing with people, and so and so took a long lunch break and they took a nap and we caught them, and you got to deal with that, or stuff like that. But I would have stayed, and I think the military was just a wonderful thing for my personality type. Even though I'm kind of a goofball, the structure was awesome. It's kind of up and down, and you get to go new places every couple of years, and you just get used to that groove of moving. But I did want to stay in. But the separation, I just want to tell you, it was not hell. It was. Some people tell you it's just the worst thing in the world, but I did a lot of my homework and research, as we've talked about. I talked to people. We have a wonderful community of veterans all around the world. Spoke with them, got their feedback, and made the right steps because there's so many guideposts along the way for you as a veteran when you leave. And even I think you said Kellen touched on some of that stuff. Probably last podcast, didn't he? Some of that stuff.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, the separation was not terrible as long as you do your homework and you talk to the right people. And the signs are there. It's you walk in. I've been in a number of VA facilities. The signs are right there. Come here, go there, talk to these people, sign this paperwork, and maybe sometimes it takes a while. I think that's because there was just a giant dump of people after Iraq and Afghanistan wound down that kind of were in that veteran system after that. And I don't know if everybody anticipated that. So things do take a little while sometimes. But for the most part, I'm pretty sure they get done, at least in my experience,
Yeah. And then I always want to ask people about any personal passions that they have. For instance, Kellen does mentoring out at the University of Oregon. It's for young Black males who they're in this new environment, and they might be having some trouble with things. So he goes out there and he talks to them and gets the ball rolling on just discussion, which is a great thing for him to do because he's really got this coaching and mentoring personality. He's always had that.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Oh, he's good. He's good.
But is there anything that you have that you're passionate about that you want to get the word out on?
Well, with the company I was with in Virginia, and even before that in Milwaukee, I was doing my passion. I was able to be a video producer and roll forward and do news stories about really the veteran community and exceptional people who were willing to share their stories with me. Oneida Soldiers ago, if you Google that one, or it'll come up on my Vimeo page. That was a wonderful piece that I put together. That I'm trying to speak for myself. It was a wonderful video. I mean, determine that for yourself. But wonderful guy, I should say, Native American Vietnam veteran. But I've been able to do my passion, and I've been incredibly blessed to be able to roll forward with that and be a part of the video production world and get paid for it. So I've done some volunteer work as well using my video skills. I did some work with the Milwaukee Homeless Veterans Initiative last year. I was able to do some quote unquote volunteer work in terms of doing events and filming them, putting together short stories for them, and obviously not asking for you don't want to ask for money for something like that because it's a great program and you want that money to stay in the community. But anyway. So yeah, and again, here I go down these paths again, I keep blabbing and blurting and talking, but I've been able to really do my passion. That's the one thing I'm really passionate about is storytelling. Not so much, I don't want to say news or just playing around with the camera, but telling stories and having people share their experiences with me and kind of bouncing off one another and being able to edit that down to something special and sharing it with the world via something like the internet, which has been wonderful. I mean, remember like 13 years ago, YouTube was like, you had to render something down to like 24 megabytes and had to be like 3 minutes. Now you got something like Vimeo with all these wonderful platforms to share stories on. It's a great world. Yeah. For the most part.
There are some dark areas.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
In the social media rage.
Yeah. Friendster.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about before we wrap this up? I think we've covered most everything. We've gone from pre-military just a little bit to the carrier days, Tokyo days, to the medically retired, and a little bit of the separation process.
Yeah, I hope I was a help. Again, I got this Italian side that's very passionate and talkative and blah blah blah. And I tend to just go on and on. So I'm sorry if you got to edit this down. But I want to thank you for the time you spent with me and letting me talk about some of this stuff. But just to wrap up, as you can probably gather, my experience, even though there were some negative Nancy days, was pretty positive. And again, looking back on it, all the hard work, it really is something you just look back and you think, wow, I was able to do all that. But it's really sort of like, to borrow a term, like standing on the shoulders of giants or something like that. Like I was able to learn from so many other people along the way that built me up. I just hope that I can go forward, like Kellen is today with younger people, being an inspiration for them or helping them along the way. Hope I can do that going forward. Who knows? I could be. I don't know. No one's really told me that. But I just want to thank you for your time and, again, letting me do this. And if anyone has any questions, I still talk to people, by the way. When Carrier airs on TV, I get people who are thinking about the Navy and they want to know more. Anybody can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about any aspect of my military career or GS career, further in depth. They want to know about, the bathrooms on the ship. I'll tell them all about it, whatever it might be. And you can link my email if you'd like to with the podcast some way, somehow. It's not my phone number,
Is that the best way for people to get in touch with you if they do have questions?
Yeah, they can add.
We have Vimeo.
Mm-hmm.
Are you on? Do you do Twitter? Any of that stuff?
Yeah, if you just Google Christian Garzone, there's like Dominic, Frankie, Vinny, Tony Garzone. I'm none of them. I'm Christian Garzone. And don't Google the Garzone family in Pennsylvania. I'm not related to them. They were like a funeral parlor that was harvesting body parts. I have no idea who they are. But
I remember that was a big deal. That was a big part of your life there toward the end of your assignment there in Japan.
They're right, but there is like some Garzone family in Pennsylvania who was like harvesting body parts. Terrible story. I shouldn't even. But they can Google Christian Garzone. Facebook profile should come up. They can reach out to me that way, or Christian.Garzone at gmail.com is my normal regular email address.
Awesome. I appreciate you being open about that. That's really cool.
Yeah. Anybody can reach out anytime. I'll be happy to talk to them about whatever they might have about the military, because any young man or woman, it's a great experience going forward. I think anyways.
All right. Yeah. I appreciate your time. We took about an hour getting through this. So
did we?
Thank you for sitting there in your soundproof little soundproof car there.
Soundproof Chevy Malibu. Yeah.
Works well. Let's sell some cars.
All right. All right.
As Christian said, he's open to fielding questions about Navy service, etc. If you want to contact him, go ahead, but just remember he's not associated with the Pennsylvania Garzones. He made that very clear that he does not, I repeat, Christian Garzone does not harvest bodies. Check out his work on Vimeo too. His handle there is C Garzone, C as in Christian Garzone. And the particular video that he mentioned is Oneida Soldier. That's Oneida Soldier. Really great stuff that he's produced. I'm also going to try to put these in the show notes, so I'm going to have to figure that out. Another good time is to listen to a bit of the Cecil phone calls. Now, these are actually some calls that our first guest, Kellen Carr, had to put up with when he was hosting the Eagle 810 morning radio show in Japan. Also, if you haven't listened to that first episode, please check it out. Kellen is an incredible dude. If I can't link these for some reason, just search Cecil Breeze on YouTube. That's Breeze spelled like the New Orleans quarterback, Drew Brees. I'm not sure exactly how Christian was connected with these Cecil calls, but it does show a little bit of the craziness that a military radio DJ might have to deal with, or any radio host for that matter. Oh, and finally, Carrier does air occasionally on PBS, but they also have on-demand episodes for free at pbs.org/WETA/Carrier. And the show takes you aboard the aircraft carrier and just exposes the audience to what life is like through the eyes of various crew members who probably never expected that they'd be in that position. So I'm going to leave you with that. However you're spreading joy this season, please help spread the word to get this podcast into military and veteran communities. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook and iTunes. I'm working to get a website up and running as well as listings in other podcasting outlets, so if you listen elsewhere, let me know and I'll try to get us there. And if you know anyone who should be on the show, I'll take that as well. Happy holidays, and I hope you join us next time on the Boots Off podcast.